everyone. Welcome to the Power Within podcast, the podcast that has on inspiring people with inspiring stories. And this time around is no different. I have a very inspiring lady on the show here today, and her name is Sharon Ledwith. Sharon is the author of 3 books. She's a business owner for 10 years. She's a grief and trauma coach, hypnotherapist, working with babies, children, women, and men through energy work and hypnotherapy. Sharon is passionate in helping her clients create the changes that they deserve. Sharon, it's great to have you on the show. How are you, my friend?
Thanks a million, Trevor. Great to be here.
Great stuff.
Excited.
Brilliant. Me too. And we're going to have a great conversation here today, I'm sure. And Sharon, I've just given a quick, brief bio there, a couple of lines. Would you like to elaborate on your journey and how you got to be sitting here in front of me today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of started into energy work about 10 years ago when I started my business. And kind of what brought me into, the holistic side of things was in 2001, my brother died by suicide. And then, the next couple of years kind of spiraled out of control because obviously the shock and the trauma really, you didn't really have much counselling. There wasn't much awareness around family bereavement or anything like that, especially through suicide. So we kind of all went down the path of just, suppressing it, kind of keeping together, not really talking about it. So then what kind of spiraled after that then was that I was using alcohol as a suppressant. And then, the depression and everything like that. So then I tried to take my life twice. So the first time, I was in that real deep state that really just couldn't come out of it. Wasn't really aware, definitely not aware of, anything. And then when I tried to take my life the second time, it was kind of like that moment where you kind of like, I woke up in the bed and, my family were around and the doctors were around and they're like, you need help, Sharon, and I was just kind of sitting there thinking, I'm not going to get out of here. I'm not getting out of here. And I had this thought, and I still remember this thought to today. It's like, you're not getting out of here, Sharon. You better do something with your life. So that was, then, and that was way back a long time ago. So then kind of like the next kind of 10 years, I didn't make any huge changes. I just always had that feeling and that memory of being in the hospital. Obviously, the guilt and everything when you see people around you and, they're so upset for you and you think that, you feel sorry for making them feel that way. So there was a lot of guilt. I had a lot of emotion, pathological emotions attached to it. And obviously the grief of losing my brother. So the next 10 years, I kind of just plodded along, never did anything with my emotions. I went to counselling. And I remember because I was quite young, because my brother passed when I was 21. So you can imagine those years, you're out drinking, you're partying, so I was doing a lot of that. And I went to the counsellor and I remember getting a bus because I was living in Dublin at the time. And I used to get the bus and the whole way in, I'd be like, what will I tell her now this week? What will I tell her? So I wasn't ready for change. I definitely wasn't ready for change. And I can see that now. And I suppose that was a huge thing. So then, within that next 10 years, I got married and I had 2 children. So again, it's like that thing, that a lot of my clients would experience. You have this relationship, you have a marriage, you have 2 beautiful children, but yet you feel empty inside. Yeah. And, the guilt of that as well, that, here I am, I have all of these things, but yet I feel empty inside. So then I had my second daughter and all of these feelings started to come back. So there was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of pathological emotions attached to them. And I said, at that stage, I suppose it wasn't about me anymore. It was about the kids. So I didn't want to go back to that feeling. I didn't want to go back to that bed when I woke up and says, you're not getting out of here. So something shifted. Something happened, that I didn't want to go back on medication. I didn't really want to go back, down those paths. So what I did was I started to run. So I started to train for a half marathon, and then I went to homeopathy. But while I was training for my half marathon, I put my back out. and not really bad, but like I remember I couldn't train for a while, and then this girl said, "Why don't you go to this lady called Chris?" So I took off anyways to Chris for a massage, and it was like, I can't really describe it because it was a massage I went for, but it was like when I went home, I actually couldn't think negative. I couldn't think one thing negative, and I was like, So I came into the Saturday, and I was kind of like, I still like have this a shift in energy. That's all I can say it was. And then so I rang her and I said, and I know it's the weirdest thing to say to somebody, but I said, I don't know what you did to me, but I just can't get those thoughts that I had before. And then she just said, "Look at Sharon, I have something to tell you." She said, while I was doing a massage on you, she said, "I did some energy work." She said, "I did some Reiki on you, and your root chakra was blocked." And like she didn't know about, well, she would have known about my brother passing away, but she wouldn't have known about my suicide attempts, and she wouldn't have known where I was in that moment. But she could tell me all of it. She could just say, "Look at Sharon, there's trauma there, there's so much guilt." And I carry that guilt as well for my brother because, when my brother passed away, I was living in Dublin, and he had said to me, probably on the Friday, he said, "Oh, will you come home?" And I said, "I can't come home because I was only working I had to was only allowed one weekend off a month. And then that following weekend was my 21st. So I said, "Oh no, I can only come home for my 21st. So I carried that guilt because he died then on the Sunday. So he rang me on the Friday, and then he asked me to come home, and I said I couldn't. And then he passed away on the Sunday. So I carried that guilt for 10 years, for 10 years thinking, not that it was my fault, but I always had that thing of, if I came home, he'd still be here. So that was all inside of me. So it's like that thing, the book, The Body Holds the Score, knows the score. I was just holding all of these pathological emotions inside of me. And then when she did energy work on me, that was it. It was just this huge relief. It's like the pressure cooker. It's like the valve just blew, and I didn't go into a state. I went into a real kind of uplifted state. So that is the story. And after that, then I completely changed everything. I went into energy work. And probably within 9 months to 12 months, I had left my job that I was in for 11 years. I walked out. I said, "That's it. I'm going to do this," because I would have always been quite intuitive. I would have always had people come to me and tell me their problems. So I just thought, Jesus, I must be attracting all of these people. But it was actually, I was like, "Oh God." And I know my husband used to say, "How come everybody comes up to you talking, telling you their problems?" Or they used to be crying. He used to cry, tell me the problems. He used to cry, and he'd be like, "Oh God, here's another one," But it was all energy. And I didn't know at the time. It was all just energy. So that's then how I got into it 10 years ago. And that's what I live to today.
Brilliant. It's inspiring to listen to your story. I hadn't heard it. And thanks for sharing it. It's inspirational. And genuinely, I know we met first at the hypnotherapy conference back in May earlier this year. And I mentioned this conference on this podcast a few times, folks. A great event, amazing experience, and it's been a thrilling journey and ride ever since. And thanks to John Scanlon once more for kicking it all off, and this fantastic network there.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing, and I'm sure Sharon would agree with that. And Sharon, to me, you are Mrs. Motivator to me, because Sharon, folks, she is one of the most dedicated people that I know. Like she treats her profession with so much respect, and she gives it everything. She really does. She puts her heart and soul into the work that she does, and the different ways that she helps people, and the different services she provides. And she's such a great support as well, to not only me, to all of the network at the Irish Hypnotherapy group. And even with this podcast, folks, Sharon, and a shout out to Jen as well. Sharon and Jen and myself were the initial, I suppose, idea for the podcast. I remember going back a couple of months ago, we had a Zoom call about the conference. You might recall that, Sharon.
Yeah.
And at that stage, we hadn't a name for it. We had just an idea. It was simply that's all it was at that moment. And didn't have the equipment, didn't have anything really. So I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you folks and doing this podcast if it wasn't for Sharon, because I think Sharon is fantastic at encouraging me, and she's this way of motivating and pushing and so that you can get the best out of yourself. And she also gave a great presentation a couple of months back as well on achieving your goals. And this presentation, one of the best presentations I've ever seen. It's just unbelievably motivating. And so thanks, Sharon, for all of that.
You're so welcome. And that's what I love to do. There's a quote from, and anybody who knows me knows like a quote's wrong all the time. So, but there's a quote from Florence Scovel, and she has a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And I live by this because, from where I was, to where I am, I had to, again, go on that journey. But for me, like, there's a belief inside of me that everybody has that potential. Everybody has the potential to grow. I just believe that, again, a lot of us are clouded by, pathological emotions, which I work very, very closely with, the environment. So when I see somebody like you, I seen you were driven, I seen you wanted it, call it energy, call it whatever, but I could see that, you were in your own way. Nobody else. So again, it's that thing of, for me, that thing from Florence Scovel is that, the greatest gift we can give to anybody, when they don't believe in themselves, hold that faith for them. And that's what I do with every single one of my clients that come in. I know if anybody has been drawn to me, and that's in my, in my life, like everybody from the conference, just an amazing group of people, amazing group of energy. So my thing is to hold that, that's the greatest gift. Doesn't cost anything, it doesn't cost one thing to, hold that faith for somebody else. And all we have to do then is simply get goals around it, put a plan around it, put a goal around it, and then we can achieve, our biggest dreams, So again, for me, I seen that in you, I see it in so many people, and we just need that tiny bit of support when we don't have that full confidence and belief in ourselves. That somebody else is just going to say, you've got this, look at, let's do X, Y, and Z, let's get it out there. And you just build on that, because what is confidence? Like, if we look at confidence is just doing what I said I'm going to do. So if I say I'm going to do a podcast, well, then I'm going to have to get a couple of people, who might know and who might not know. And if we don't know, then we'll find out. And that's another one of my mottos. If I don't know how we're going to do it, I'm telling you, I'm going to find out how to do it. So the thing for the podcast was, we said, all right, we're going to come together. We're going to collectively think of a name. We all got a job. We all did it. And like for you, we can see, like, I'm the 10th person on this, every time you do it, you're building that confidence inside, but if I say that I'm going to do something, and this is where self-esteem comes as well a little bit, because if I say I'm going to do a podcast, for every week I'm sitting there thinking, oh, am I going to do that podcast? No, Jesus, I can't do that podcast. Then I chip away at that little bit of the masterpiece that I'm trying to create. So, and this is why, for me, hypnotherapy is just so, so powerful, because I would have went down the route of grief and bereavement, working with trauma. So I would have did a diploma in that, and I loved it. And I loved helping people. I loved helping people through their grief and through their trauma, because I had experienced it. I knew I could nearly sit in it all the time, but I knew the potential was way more than, the system and the structure that I was only allowed. I was only allowed to do a certain thing in a certain way, and people had to come back to me all the time. And I love people, don't get me wrong, I love people, but I don't want people coming back to me for the rest of their life. I want to empower them. And that's my whole thing, is I want to empower people to say, right, you can come to me, I will do this hypnotherapy for you. I will help you create those changes. But then I have to, what I do is I give everybody a wellness plan afterwards. And I say, okay, this, and this. because we have to be very much aware of environments as well. So somebody can come in and they can get a great shift in the energy and with hypnotherapy, but then they might have to go out to an environment that's not so supportive. So we teach them then how to do it.
Exactly.
Self-hypnosis, teach them all of these things, self-love, self-care. And then people will be empowered to change.
Exactly. And can I just say that in those moments that I have, folks, of self-doubt, I'd like to relate a story that I think Sharon had a big role to play in terms of pushing me on. A couple of months back, I had a gentleman call me who wanted help for his son, who had failed a couple of driving tests. And so the third test was planned and scheduled in, Sharon. And he said, look, can you help him? Because his nerves are gone. He's not confident about it. He's overthinking it. And he's blaming the instructor, you know, for giving him a hard time. And he's everyone but himself. Will you be able to help him? So I said, geez, I'd love to help him, you know, send him in. So lovely young lad, in his early 20s, who we ended up having 3 great sessions together. We've done some powerful work. And when he was leaving at the end of the third session, I asked him to, you know, give me a thumbs up when you passed that third test in a couple of weeks. And he said he would. So he left, and I kind of forgot about it after that. You know, the way the days passed and the weeks passed. And one day I was sitting there, phone, text comes through on my phone, notification, and looked at it, and it was a thumbs up. And it actually took me, you know, it took me 10, 20 seconds to realize and remember who was it from. And then I realized it was the young lad who had passed his driving test, and he was giving me the thumbs up to go, well, I've done it. And that is a great feeling. Like, that is amazing. Like, his dad called me then later that day and thanked me for helping him, and his son ended up giving me a great testimonial and some powerful feedback. It's really priceless. So with that, I decided to do something with where this was going in this direction. And so with the help of my good wife, Andre, who
you took the opportunity.
She listed off all of the, well, not maybe all, but 7, half a dozen or so schools of motoring in the Waterford area in the southeast. And so the plan was going to ring them all and tell them who it was, and the way I could help and the services I provide, and hopefully getting in and sending them all my details after that. So I came into the office and I had the half dozen to 7 on the list, and the first 2 only, that was neutral. So it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was okay. They took me details and that was it. The third one was somebody who was, look, not enthusiastic at all from the get-go. You know, you just get the energy, as you said, you just get the vibe. It's not going to work, this, because he was going on about how he does all that himself. You know, that's part of his role to give confidence to his clients, and there's nothing that he needs. So he doesn't need my help, and hung up. Right. So at that point, you know, it's a natural, the way you feel it in your stomach, kind of going on.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I looked at the other 4 and I went, well, what would Sharon do here in this position, in this moment? I know well what you do.
A good thing or a bad thing, Trevor, I don't know.
Move on to number 4, you know, and even more motivated. And it was great, because when I got to number 5, I hit the jackpot. You know, this gentleman who was very enthusiastic and very interested in the work that I'm doing and wanted to know more. And you know, I'm so interested in hypnotherapy, and I was thinking of doing it myself, or this and that and the other. And geez, I'd love your help. I'd really appreciate that, because of a lot of clients that I come that do suffer with nerves and are not confident. And it's not only with the driving test, it's with actually when they're learning how to drive. You know, like we forget because we can drive when you know, on autopilot now when you know how to drive. But if you recall how scary it might have been getting into a car for the first time, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
So the moral of the story is there that, you know, this is go back to thanking you, Sharon, and for inspiring me to kind of keep pushing out of the comfort zone, and you know, to get the best out of yourself, because I think you're a fantastic, may I say, role model and inspiration for not only me, I'm sure the Irish hypnotherapy group would agree with that. So thanks very much.
No worries. And that's what I think, you know, again, and it's what you can see, you know, with every week that's coming here is the passion. Like if we do things out of the passion. So I absolutely live my job. If I tell somebody to get up early in the morning and journal, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to tell them to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning journaling. Now that's not a big, you know, you're great, Sharon. But like that's a conscious decision that I made, because I need that time. I need that headspace. I need, you know, my journaling. I need my meditations, you know, my hypnosis. But again, if I want to change something in my life, I will use hypnotherapy. So I really live my business, you know, because I love it. But I do it out of that unconditional love for the people who I need to serve, for myself, because I need to keep myself well. So I don't do it out of expectation about what might happen. So you went in, you know, and obviously when we go into something, there's an expectation. But let's say what you went in there to do was you went in there as yourself, because you're building that confidence with all of this, you know, to do something. You did something really, really powerful for one guy. You've seen the gratitude he had for it. It built up that energy. And I was only talking to John last night, you know, and we were talking about having the clients, like, you know, when we're doing the hypnotherapy, and the energy that you get after, it's just, and you see them change there, you see them walk out, and they might have years and years of anxieties, worries, or fears, or, you know, just again, not even knowing what it is. And then they're just like this, I've never felt like that before. So we were on talk about that last night, myself and John, you know, but again, it's this thing, when we go to do this, and no matter what job I will go, you know, when I go to apply for somewhere, I'm thinking about the person, I'm thinking about who I can serve, you know, and how I can help them change their life. So there's no expectation on my part. And I think if we live like this, if we expect something, then we'll be disappointed. When we are in an energy of, you know what, I'm doing this because I love this, because I know, and I see it, because I work, you know, I get the knockoff from CAMS, you know, the children who can't get on a waiting list for CAMS. I know we need this more than ever now. I know that we just, you know, this is so, so powerful. People need it. Children need it right now. Like, you know, so if I'm doing it without any expectations, and I'm going to get 20 clients this week, or I'm going to get, you know, this amount of money, rather than, right, whoever comes to me this week, you know, whatever needs to happen, whatever, like that number 5, you got it at number 5. It's like that story of the guy who stopped digging for gold 2 foot before it, because we get the disappointment. If we can pass through that disappointment and say, you know what, that's just one person, that's his opinion, that's, you know, maybe he does have it nailed, brilliant for him. What do? I have to move forward. And when we can live like that, you know, do stuff out of love, do stuff for the person, serve the person, rather than expectation, then we will never be disappointed. And that's where we build more and more confidence. So well done you, Trevor.
We were talking about that actually before we came on here, regarding the podcast here that I'm doing, that my mindset is very much, I'm enjoying the time that I'm spending with so many great people, including yourself. And I'm very grateful and privileged and honored to have that experience. And, you know, that is priceless to me, you know, to be able to spend this time with so many amazing people. And so that's the way I'm looking at it from now on. I'm not looking at it in terms of, you know, how many people are watching it, or is it getting out there? Or, I mean, you know what, like, even if after this podcast, let's say I said, right, that's it, 10 podcasts, season 1, I'm off. See you next year, lads.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, I've done what I wanted to do really, but
Yeah.
I've nothing to lose, you know, there's nothing to lose at this point. And it's a great feeling that it does take the, you know, to take the expectation away, to look, you
And
need to
everything
be
flows.
the best, or you need to kind of be, you know, perfect. Because like as a society, we're kind of conditioned that way, you know, through the TV, you know, you have
Yeah.
all these, everyone, you know, in TV3, they're all so everything is so perfect. You know,
But that's
so
not life, you know.
yeah, so even if this podcast is a little bit rough around the edges, I think that's part of its charm, really. So
Well, it's the authenticity of it, you know.
yeah,
That's the authentic, you know. And when we come in that, and look, if we look at energy, you know, I love energy, you know, and I love when I meet people. There's certain people in my life who will come in, and I'm like, okay, that's not the energy for me. And there's other people, yeah, and we've all collectively, you know, that's just shows how the vibration of the conference, you know, is that we've all come together, we've all connected, and we're all helping each other grow, which is fantastic. And like that, you know, if it is a thing that you decided not to continue, which I know you won't, but now because it is that thing of I'm just sitting here and I'm being with the person. I'm not being with the numbers. I'm not being where it gets out. I'm sitting with the person and listening. So it's active listening, active talking. And the energy of that actually changes as well. So then we'd be surprised, oh my God, you know, got over to America or got over to Australia. Force negates. When we try and force something, that's why I always, you know, for hypnotherapy, it's really, really fantastic, because a lot of people would be forcing trying to be happy, forcing trying to do this, forcing trying to be confident. Whereas we can come back in, we can create those changes. Force negates. We just sit and be, you know, and in the energy that we are now, everything flows, you know. And we still have to look at our stuff, you know. I always have to look at my stuff. I don't have it nailed. Nobody has it nailed. And if they do tell you they have it nailed, red flags to me. Like, oh, I'm fully healed and, you know, I don't need anything. I'm like, you know, red flag, because, you know, we're all evolving, we're all growing, you know, and we all have to change in some way, shape, or form. But as I say, for me, I'm very much aware, and that's why I think about this conference. We're so lucky, you know. And I always say it. I used to say to a group of ladies that when COVID came, had a group of ladies, and there was 100, and I think at one stage there was 126 of us. They used to come on every Thursday night for meditations and, you know, energy work and all of this thing. And I say, we're so lucky to be in this awareness. We are so lucky that we can, you know, our purpose here in life is to help one person. And, you know, our job is done, you know, definitely. And yours is as well, because you've got this out there. So it's that thing of we're so lucky even to have this awareness. There's so many people who are going around and they're in their head all the time. There's so many people like where I was that time, where I had my beautiful kids, you know, where, you know, I had a home, I had marriage, I had all my friends and my family around me, where I couldn't feel that happiness. I couldn't feel that love from myself, you know. And there are people out there like that. And we have this awareness, and we have this tool, and we have this technique, whatever way you want to use it. You know, I'll throw anything in the mix, anything that's going to, you know, it's like a lucky dip when you come into me, like, you know, you don't know what you're going to get, like, you know. But again, at the end of the day,
yeah,
I'm just coming with the person who's shown up in front of me. If that person needs energy work, then I'm going to do energy work. If that person needs a little bit of grief, you know, and coaching, then I'm going to do that. But inevitably, everybody goes home with homework. Everybody goes home with a wellness plan because of the environment. If they're going out and the environment isn't supportive, then unfortunately we can come back a little bit. So, you know, I always give, you know, tools and techniques. I like to call it their toolbox. So somebody comes back and says, you know, Sharon, you know, I was doing great, I was doing fantastic. And then I'd say, okay, well, look, go into the link I sent you, you know, do this for two or 3 days. If the energy is lifted, then brilliant, they're away, and they know then the next time it gives confidence, the next time that they will go into my toolbox. If not, then we'll come back and we'll review it. You know, so it's just,
it's a
I
great
just
way
think
of
we're so
working.
lucky. We're just so lucky.
We absolutely are. And you know, I think we're changing as well the public perception of the work that we do.
Absolutely.
You know, the more of us, like, I mean, we've got together, and you know, we're all powerful in our own right, but when we come together as a group, imagine how powerful, that is. And that is
Absolutely.
showing itself in the last couple of months.
And I run energy work groups all the time. I'm actually running a hypnotherapy one on the 12th of November. And I love it because if we come collectively as an energy, it's so powerful. We've seen it from the conference. And that's what I would say to anybody as well who's listening, who thinks, oh, I can't go to the conference because I'm not a hypnotist. Absolutely not. Like, there's so much awareness there. There's so much things, like, again, if it's just a thing that you feel stuck, if it's a thing that, you're stressed or worried, like, go to the conference. See all the amazing people, all the amazing speakers that are going to speak at it. They're going to give you tools. They're going to demonstrate. It's a game changer, it's a life changer. So that for me is like, now that you can see it, and we're actually talking it on the WhatsApp group the last day, that people are seeing the benefits of these of hypnotherapy. They're seeing the benefits of because unfortunately the system is overloaded, especially for mental health. When I work with the grief, and as I say, when I'm working with children from camp, there's like a 3-month waiting list. So I only had a little boy there 2 weeks ago in first year, overwhelmed. First week was fine, completely overwhelmed. Went to the doctor. The doctor said give him a week off, which is fine. Then went to CAMS, no phone call back, so they didn't know what to do. Then they got referred, a friend of theirs said, go here to Sharon. So again, through the doctor, they said, okay. Like in 48 hours, that little boy was back at school. 48 hours. So, through hypnotherapy, wow. Again, I brought him back. I actually had him yesterday evening as well. I brought him back because I wanted to see how, and he's like a different child. And the mother said it. So it's this thing is we can be there. Now, as I said to the mother, very same thing. She's still, so that 3 weeks, 4 weeks altogether, maybe 5 weeks because he was off 2 weeks. She still hadn't heard from CAMS. And that's okay because I know they're completely, overstretched. But like, he could have been in that space for the last month, no school, no work for the mother. Whereas hypnotherapy, energy work, whatever it is that you have to offer somebody to give them that, peace of mind that the child has been seen, then you got to do it. You have to do it.
Sure. And change happens in a moment, doesn't it? It can happen
absolutely
in an instant.
Yeah.
And
but it's like that thing, like even with hypnotherapy, as we were saying yesterday, you can see them automatically change in the room. You can see, straight away they'll either come around after it, and that inner giggle and that inner smile is coming up, like, and they're laughing away, like I don't know what you just did, I actually had a guy for stopped eating sugar, and he was funny, like, because he just woke up and he's like, well, not woke up, he didn't sleep, but he came out of hypnosis and he's just like, I don't know what weird stuff that was. And then the next day he's like, I haven't touched a bit of chocolate. He still hasn't since this day. But, it's just funny, like, when they kind of come around after it and they're just like, oh, something's changed.
Once they're on the threshold for making that change, I think also is important. And
so important.
You do need to be taking personal responsibility, folks, for your health and your happiness.
Absolutely.
Yes, you're using we're using these tools and techniques and these wonderful strategies to help, but it is important that our clients engage and come to us with the right mindset, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why I empower, like I'm such a huge advocate for teaching them, teaching them self-hypnosis, giving them a plan, to do, because as I say, you go back out and, you get on with life, but it is, again, when people want that change and then they have something to work from, it's forever change for them then. So I'm really, really big into, teaching them. And even in my workshops, like I teach, self-hypnosis, I teach, all of these things, to even do recordings for themselves, because that's where the power comes. You're giving them then, you're empowering them then to say, right, no matter what comes up in my life, that's, I'm going to use something out of this toolbox. And also with goals as well, because when we hit something, so let's say your goal for doing the podcast, when we achieve that, and we don't have another goal set, we plod along, and obviously, the subconscious mind's like, oh, this is nice and safe, Trevor, this is nice and safe. I think we were going on a cruise last week, weren't we? I was telling you to go on a cruise,
That's right. Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
that thing of, it just says, yeah, look, this is nice and safe. Aren't you grand now? I haven't done the 10. But we need goals that scare us. We need goals big enough that scare us, because it just pushes us. It gives us that drive. It's not the expectation of it happening tomorrow or the next week. It's just that, and then when it doesn't, have the disappointment. So it's about having that goal to say, right, I've achieved this. This is brilliant. So there's recognition of the achievement, and you have to recognize how far you've come and everything that you've achieved.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what's the next one? So the next one could be saying, yeah, sure, look at if I hit 12. Where it's like, no, how about if I get this podcast out to America? Oh, jeez. So it's straight away, it's like, oh, Jeannie, I don't know, would you be able to do that now? Sure, who would you get there? So it's about really, really pushing it out there. And then again, like we did, it's just, again, getting, what can I do to make this happen? Because everything's possible. Absolutely everything in life is possible. But it's only clouded by our old ways of thinking.
The biggest limitator is ourselves, has been said before in the podcast, and it's so true.
Yeah, so true. So
Sharon,
true. But everybody has the power. Some people say to me, especially when I'm in with my clients, they say, oh, this must be a gift. Absolutely not. I had to go to a place where I didn't want to go back to. So I got to a place where I woke up and I was like, you're not getting out of this. My brother committed suicide. He tried once, it happened, whereas I tried twice to take myself out of here. I wasn't going anywhere. So what I had to do then is I had to channel the energy, which it took a long time. And even for the energy, it actually had to take me, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about somebody else. So when you go into that energy then, and when you change that energy, you fight for more stuff, and you put yourself out there, and you go and you do it, because everything is possible. So from where I was to where I am right now, and still evolving and growing, like you said, changing all the time. I have to evolve all the time, and learn new things, and all of this content free, everything I've learned from the conference has just been mind blowing sometimes, and learn and everything like that. In Dublin a couple of weeks ago, it's just all been so fantastic. But again, it's that thing of pushing ourselves forward, taking the next step, and moving forward with it. I went off on a rant on that one.
And Sharon, you're based in, you're a Galway girl. You're based in, is it
Athenry?
Athenry.
So John wanted me to sing the Fields of Athenry, but I said I said I'll get Trevor to sing
it. Sharon, it's been fantastic listening to you. I'm sure listeners have really enjoyed this discussion here today. Is there any parting words of wisdom you would like to share with us before you say goodbye?
Yeah, I just think, definitely for the therapists, we're so lucky, whether it's energy work, whether it's holistic, whether it's hypnotist, hypnotherapist, magic. We've all touched on magic now lately as well, which is brilliant. We have the awareness, and we're so lucky. I feel every day so privileged to have the awareness, that some people out there don't have. And some people, unfortunately, might pass away today not even knowing any of even a nugget of what we have. My advice is, if it's, if you have that feeling, if you have that drive to help somebody, just go do it. Just go do it, out of your own way, set a goal bigger than you could ever believe, and just work your way through it. Take every day and work, and the self-care and the self work behind it is huge as well. So that's what I would say. There's people out there, like Freddie says, like you've said loads of times, there's so many people out there who need our help, who need what we have. And like that, don't come with any expectations, just come from that love of, I'm going to help this person today.
Sharon, thanks very much.
And expect miracles every day.
Exactly. Thanks very much for taking the time to come on the Power Within podcast here today.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your time, and I've really, really enjoyed your company. I've really enjoyed this discussion, and of course, you're welcome back at any time you want. We'll get you back on.
Thanks a million.
Podcast number 64. Well, who knows?
Well,
Sometimes,
maybe 264.
well, you never know.
This is it. Absolutely. You know, look at, you have to, it's to say, Trevor, you know, do something that scares you. We should do something that scares us every day.
Yeah. If it doesn't scare you, well, your goal isn't
Not big enough.
That's what Sharon said, folks, and she's right. Sharon, I'll let you go.
Thank you so much, and well done you.
Take care, Sharon. So
Bye.
it's that time again to say goodbye. As Sharon said, everything's possible if we believe and we have the right mindset. You can achieve your goals. And look, that's true for me. It's true for Sharon. It's true for all you guys out there as well. So until next time, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Take care, folks.